Get out. My stepmother didn't say it like a request. She said it like a verdict, like I was something she had finally gotten permission to remove from the room. The silence after her voice hit the living room was sharp enough to feel physical. My father didn't speak. He never did in moments like this. My suitcase was still half unpacked near the stairs. I had moved in 3 weeks ago after my lease ended, thinking it would be temporary. Family helps family, she said at the time. Now she stood between me and the hallway like she owned it. I said, get out. She repeated, louder this time. This is not your house. Not anymore. That was the moment something inside me went still. Not broken. Not emotional. Still. I looked at her, then at my father, then at the framed deed on the wall behind her. And I realized something she clearly hadn't bothered to check before speaking. This wasn't just my father's house. It wasn't just hers either. And in exactly 36 minutes, she was going to learn exactly whose name was actually on it. I didn't argue. That's what surprised her most. No shouting. No begging. No emotional collapse like she expected. I just picked up my phone from the couch. My stepmother crossed her arms. Don't start calling people. This isn't negotiable. My father finally spoke. Quietly, let's just calm down. But she didn't look at him. She was focused on me like she was waiting for me to crack. I unlocked my phone and opened a folder labeled documents. Not dramatic, not rushed, just deliberate. Because the truth is, I had learned something a long time ago. People only check paperwork after they've already decided how they feel. My stepmother stepped forward slightly. What are you doing? I didn't answer. I just opened the file. Property records, deed transfers, legal registration, and one line at the top that made everything else irrelevant. Owner, me. She laughed once. That's impossible. But her voice was already thinner, because she had just noticed something she had ignored for months. My name wasn't a mistake on the document. It was the reason she had no authority in this room at all. She stared at the screen like it might rearrange itself if she looked long enough. Then she scoffed. No, she said quickly. Your father handles all of that. You don't own anything here. My father shifted uncomfortably, but didn't contradict her. That hesitation told me everything. People don't interrupt lies they've benefited from. My stepmother reached for the phone in my hand. Give me that. You're being dramatic. I stepped back once. Not aggressively, just enough. And that small movement made her pause, because she realized I wasn't reacting like someone who was unsure. I was reacting like someone confirming a fact she didn't yet understand. I signed the transfer when I turned 18. I said calmly, you just never asked to see it. Her mouth opened slightly, closed again. For the first time, her confidence cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough that I could hear it in her breathing. That's not how things work, she said, softer now. I nodded. That's exactly how it works. A silence stretched between us, and in that silence, she made a mistake people always make when they start losing control. She tried to raise her voice again. Don't talk to me like that, she snapped, but it didn't land the way she wanted. It sounded rehearsed now, forced. My father finally stepped forward a little. Maybe we should stay out of this. She cut him off without looking at him. That alone told me how far the room had shifted, because she used to speak for him, not over him. She turned back to me, eyes sharp again, trying to rebuild authority out of volume. You're not going to stand here and tell me you own this house. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I'm not telling you. I said, I'm showing you. I tapped the screen once. Another document opened. Updated registry confirmation. Stamped. Verified. Her eyes flicked across it too fast at first, like speed could cancel meaning. Then slower. Then again. And I watched the exact moment it hit her. Not anger. Not denial. Something worse. Realization. Because the paper didn't just say, I own the house. It proved she had been speaking like someone with authority in a place where she had none. And that's when her voice changed completely. Not loud anymore. Careful. She didn't shout again. That was the strange part. Instead, she started recalculating everything out loud. This must be some kind of trust situation, she said quickly. Your father would never. I didn't inherit it. I interrupted. That stopped her. I looked at her directly. I bought it. The room went still in a different way now. Not tense. Frozen. My father blinked like he was trying to remember a conversation that had never happened. My stepmother shook her head. That's not possible. You were still in school. I was working. I said simply, you just didn't ask what I was doing. Her lips parted again, but nothing came out immediately. For the first time, she looked at the living room like it didn't belong to her anymore, like the furniture had changed language. Then I glanced at the wall clock. 36 minutes. That's what I had told myself earlier when she screamed, "Get out." Not out of anger, out of timing, because I knew something she didn't. This confrontation wasn't happening in isolation. It was happening inside a system she had never bothered to understand. And systems don't bend for confidence. They bend for ownership. My stepmother reached for her phone, like instinct could save her. This is ridiculous, she muttered. I'm calling your father's lawyer. My father tensed. Wait. But she was already dialing, confident again, or pretending to be. She paced as it rang, eyes locked on me like I might disappear if she stopped watching. Explain this, she said sharply. Right now. I didn't move, because I already knew what was coming. She put the phone on speaker. The line picked up. A calm voice answered. Law Office of Hargrove and Mills. My stepmother straightened immediately. Yes, I need clarification on a property ownership issue. The residence under Daniel Harrington's name. A pause. Then the voice responded. I'm sorry. Did you say Daniel Harrington? Her confidence flickered for the first time. Yes, his son's house. The one he lives in with his wife. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the lawyer said something that changed the air in the room completely. There seems to be a misunderstanding. That property was never transferred to Mr. Harrington. It was transferred directly to the beneficiary. A beat. And that beneficiary is listed as you. The phone stayed on speaker. No one reached to turn it off. My stepmother froze mid-breath. That's incorrect, she said quickly. There must be another file. The lawyer didn't respond immediately. Then calmly, I'm reading the official registry record. A pause. And I can confirm the current legal owner is listed as the beneficiary, not Mr. Harrington. My father stepped closer to the table now. Slowly, like the floor had become uncertain. My stepmother looked at me, but for the first time, there was no command in her eyes. Only confusion trying to become control again. You forged something, she said, voice tightening. You must have. No, I interrupted. I finally set my phone down on the table. I just read what you never bothered to check. Silence again. But this one was different, because it wasn't emotional anymore. It was structural. My stepmother turned back to the phone. What does that mean? She asked sharply. The lawyer answered without hesitation. It means any attempt to remove the listed owner from the property would be considered illegal interference. A beat. And it also means you've been speaking as if you had authority over a property you don't control. The word illegal changed everything. Not because it was loud, but because it was final. My stepmother slowly lowered the phone from speaker, like distance could undo what she had just heard. That's not possible, she said again, but it didn't sound like a statement anymore. It sounded like repetition. My father finally spoke. Careful. We should probably verify. I already did. I said. That made both of them stop. Because I wasn't guessing. I was confirming. My stepmother looked at me differently now. Not as a problem in her house. As a variable she hadn't accounted for. What did you do? She asked, quieter. I exhaled once. I made sure I had legal control of where I live. A pause. Before I moved in. That detail landed harder than anything else, because it removed emotion from the equation entirely. My stepmother looked toward the hallway, then back at me, like she was searching for a version of this situation where she still had authority, but there wasn't one. The structure had already changed, and she was only now realizing she had been giving orders inside a building that wasn't hers to control. My stepmother tried to recover the room the only way she knew how. Volume. This is insane, she said, sharper now. You don't just sit in someone's house and… I held up my hand, not aggressively, just enough to interrupt the rhythm she was trying to rebuild. Stop. That single word landed harder than anything she had said all day, because I didn't say it like a guest. I said it like someone setting a boundary inside their own property. She hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it, that flicker of uncertainty. My father looked between us, caught in something he clearly hadn't prepared for. My stepmother pointed toward the door. Then leave, she snapped again, trying to reclaim her original line. If you're going to behave like this, get out. And that's when I smiled, just slightly, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. I walked toward the hallway. Slowly, she followed me with her eyes, ready to win again. But I didn't leave. I stopped at the wall, near the entry panel, and placed my hand over the smart lock system. You keep saying that, I said calmly. Then I looked at her. But you're not the one who decides who leaves. Her expression shifted instantly. What are you doing? She asked, voice rising again, but this time it carried something else underneath it. Uncertainty. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I tapped the panel beside the door. A soft chime echoed through the hallway. My stepmother frowned. Stop messing with that. My father took a step forward. What did you do? I turned slightly toward them. I set access permissions. I said, simply. That sentence hit the room harder than shouting ever could, because it wasn't emotional. It was procedural. My stepmother laughed once, too quickly. You can't just lock people out of a house you don't own. I looked at her, and this time I didn't let her finish. I own the building. I corrected. A pause. The system just reflects it. The smart lock light turned from green to amber, then red. A soft mechanical click echoed through the doorframe. My stepmother froze. She turned toward the door like it had betrayed her personally. No, she said under her breath. You didn't just. But the door wasn't asking permission anymore. Neither was I. And for the first time since she screamed, "Get out!" the room finally understood who had the authority to say it. My stepmother rushed to the front door first. Open this, she said sharply, grabbing the handle. It didn't move. She tried again, harder this time. Still nothing. Her confidence cracked into irritation. This is ridiculous. Daniel. My father stepped behind her. Maybe it's just a glitch. It's not a glitch, I said quietly. That made her pause. Not because of the words, but because of how calm they were. She turned back to me. You think you can lock me out of my own house? I exhaled once. No, I said. I think you already did that to yourself when you stopped checking who owned it. That landed. For the first time, she didn't respond immediately. She pulled out her phone again, but her fingers weren't steady anymore. No lawyer would fix this fast enough. No argument would reverse a registry record. My father looked at me, now differently, like he was seeing the timeline instead of the conflict. My stepmother's voice lowered. You planned this. I shook my head. No, I said. I just made sure I couldn't be removed from a place I legally never stopped belonging to. And that's when she finally realized this wasn't an argument she could win by talking louder. My stepmother stopped trying to open the door. Instead, she turned back slowly, like the house itself had become unfamiliar. This is manipulation, she said, but it lacked force now. It sounded like a habit. My father looked torn between confusion and something heavier, realization. You never told us any of this, he said quietly. I didn't have to, I replied. That made him go silent. My stepmother pointed at me again, but her hand wasn't steady anymore. You don't just take over a home and shut people out, she said. I nodded once. You're right. A pause. That's why I didn't. She frowned. I continued. I documented ownership. I set terms. I made sure everything was legal before I ever stepped inside. That detail changed her expression again, because it removed the emotional argument entirely. No betrayal, no surprise inheritance dispute, no misunderstanding, just structure. She looked at my father, searching for backup, but he wasn't speaking. For the first time, she realized something worse than losing control of the house. She realized she couldn't reframe what was already recorded, and that meant every version of the story she wanted to tell was already irrelevant. Her phone rang again. This time, she didn't rush to answer it. She looked at the screen first, like she already feared what it would say. "Answer it," I said calmly. That made her flinch slightly. She hesitated, then tapped accept. "Hello," she said, voice tighter now. A different voice came through. Not the lawyer. This one was from building management. "Ma'am," the voice said politely, "we've received confirmation from ownership regarding immediate access restrictions for non-authorized occupants." My stepmother blinked. "Non-authorized what?" My father stepped closer, listening now. The voice continued, steady and professional. "All access credentials for secondary occupants have been revoked, effective immediately." A pause. "If you require assistance retrieving personal belongings, arrangements can be made through scheduled entry only." Silence. Not dramatic silence. Final silence. My stepmother lowered the phone slowly. Her mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time, she didn't have a response ready. Because this wasn't an argument anymore. It was confirmation. She looked at me like I had rewritten the rules of the room itself. And, in a way, I had. The house hadn't changed, but her permission to be inside it had. My father sat down slowly, not dramatically, just like someone whose legs had finally caught up to what his mind was processing. "So, this is real," he said quietly. My stepmother snapped her head toward him. "Of course it's not real. She's—" "Stop," he interrupted. It wasn't loud, but it was the first time he had cut her off all day. That alone shifted the room again. He looked at me, not angry, not defensive, just searching. "You really own this building?" he asked. "Yes," I said. A pause. "Legally, fully, since I was 18. My stepmother let out a short, disbelieving laugh, but it didn't carry confidence anymore. My father leaned forward slightly. Why didn't I know that? That question hit differently, because it was an accusation. It was realization that he had been left out of something important. "I didn't think I needed permission to exist here," I said quietly. That line landed harder than anything else so far. My stepmother looked between us, trying to regain control, but the structure had already shifted, and for the first time, she wasn't arguing against me. She was arguing against a reality that no longer required her approval to stand. She said it again. "Get out." But this time, it didn't carry authority. It barely carried emotion. It was just repetition from a place that hadn't caught up to reality yet. I didn't move. I didn't need to, because the house had already made its decision. My father stood slowly, staring between me and her, like he was finally seeing the structure of everything he had lived inside, without questioning it. "Is this real?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said. "It's been real since I legally took ownership. You just never looked." That silence hit differently now. My stepmother tried one last time to reclaim control, but her voice broke slightly. "This is still my home." I looked at her calmly. "No," I said. "It isn't." A notification chimed on my phone. Building access protocol updated. Her phone followed seconds later with confirmation from management. Access restricted. Entry privileges revoked. She read it, then stopped speaking entirely. The room didn't explode. It settled. My father finally asked, "What happens now?" I looked around the space once, then back at them. "Now," I said, "you learn the difference between living somewhere and having permission to be there." And for the first time since she screamed, "Get out," nobody asked who was leaving anymore.